Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the Bombardier Q400's Tarmac to Sky checklist. If you're operating the Q400, knowing your engine and propeller limitations by heart isn't just a requirement, it's absolutely essential for safe operations. But hey, instead of just dryly reading numbers out of a manual, which nobody wants to do, we're going to use some really simple visual memory tricks. That way, we can effortlessly lock these figures in and recall them instantly when we need them most.
To keep things logical and perfectly chronological, our mental map for today covers 5 phases. We'll start with basic ground operating limits, move into extreme wind ground limits, talk about ground maneuvering and reporting, hit ground static running, and finally, look at airborne operating limitations.
All right, Section 1, Basic Ground Operating Limits. Let's look at the foundational numbers you absolutely need to know before this aircraft moves a single inch.
Starting off easy, the absolute maximum torque limitation is a beautifully clean 100%. No crazy decimals to memorize here. Whenever you think of maximum torque on the ground for the Q400, just think of giving it your all, 100%, no more, no less. It's the perfect, solid baseline to kick off our checklist.
Now this brings us to a really cool memory hook for the next limit, the minimum NH. The limit is exactly 64.2%. Sounds a bit random, right? Well, to effortlessly lock this into your memory, just picture a standard 64-square chessboard being played right there in the cockpit by the 2 Q400 pilots. 64 squares plus 2 pilots gives you exactly 64.2. So whenever you're asked for minimum NH, just visualize that chess match, and you'll nail 64.2% every single time.
Moving right along to Section 2, Extreme Wind Ground Limits. Let's see how Mother Nature impacts what we can and cannot do on the tarmac.
To memorize this critical limitation, a really great trick is to use what I call the 30-58 wind link. Your universal trigger condition here is having the nose of the airplane more than 30 degrees out of the wind. If that happens, well, 50 knots becomes your absolute hard stop maximum wind speed limit for ground operations. Just pair them up mentally. If the nose is pushed out past 30, the wind cannot push past 50.
Next up, Section 3, Ground Maneuvering and Reporting. So what actually happens when we start moving the Q400 around under these specific wind conditions?
Let's build on that 30-58 wind link we just talked about. If 50 knots is the extreme wall, the second part of our memory trick is that a mere breeze of greater than 8 knots, again, with the nose still more than 30 degrees out of the wind, acts as your maneuvering threshold. Basically, wind greater than 8 knots under those nose angle conditions immediately triggers specific maximum power limitations for ground maneuvering. Drill this in. 30 is the angle, 50 is the wall, and 8 is your trigger.
But what if you actually do end up operating in winds greater than 50 knots? Let's break down the reporting rule. First off, you absolutely must record those operations. That's a given. But the brilliant trick here is for step 3. You have to provide that max wind speed data to maintenance within 24 hours. To make this stick perfectly, just link that 24-hour limit directly to the phrase flying day. Picture a single, complete rotation of the Earth, one full flying day, as your mental countdown clock to get that vital data straight over to the maintenance team.
All right, Section 4, Ground Static Running. Let's shift gears and talk about when the Q400 is just sitting there, not taxiing or maneuvering. I absolutely love how consistent this aircraft is, because sticking strictly to our sequence, the exact same trigger from our wind link applies right here to ground static running. For wind speeds greater than 8 knots with the nose more than 30 degrees out of the wind, you've got to stick to the maximum power limits for ground static operation. Since we already memorized that 30-58 wind link earlier, you already know the exact threshold for both maneuvering and static running. It's a 2-for-1.
Finally, Section 5, Airborne Operating Limitations. Time to leave the tarmac behind and look at the rules once we're up in the sky.
Now this is a strict, non-negotiable directive. Visualize the phrase, "no reverse in the sky." This absolute command means you physically cannot and absolutely must not pull the power levers aft of the flight idle gate while the aircraft is moving forward in flight. Just imagine an invisible, unbreakable lock snapping onto those power levers the exact second you leave the ground. Anything aft of flight idle is exclusively for the ground. No reverse in the sky, period.
And for our last limitation, let's look at a critical temperature threshold, the minimum static air temperature, or SAT for an engine relight. The limit is negative 40 degrees Celsius. To memorize this one without even trying, check out this awesome bit of math trivia. Negative 40 degrees Celsius is the exact same temperature as negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. It's literally the one point where the two temperature scales cross. So just remember that the minimum temp for an engine relight is so incredibly cold that two scales perfectly match up. Negative 40 is your magic number.
So, look at what we've covered by using simple visual links, from that 64-square chessboard to our super handy 3058 wind link right down to the crossing negative 40 temperature scales. We've effortlessly drilled these sequential ground and airborne limitations right into our memory banks. You now have the tools to recall them in an absolute instant. So I want to leave you with one final, incredibly important question. Are you ready to safely command the Bombardier Q400? Because knowing these limits inside and out isn't just trivia, it is the absolute foundation of doing it right, every single time. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep those memory hooks sharp.